Now, what type of trends are you seeing in the type of metals that customers are buying? Are you seeing any shifts between, silver versus gold, or maybe customers starting to go after those, PGMs, platinum and palladium?
I'm seeing two shifts right now. One, I'm seeing more silver, a bigger allocation to silver versus gold. And I'm seeing a move more towards bars than coins. So we still sell more coins in the 1 ounce denomination than equivalent bars, but bars are climbing up, particularly on the gold side. And I think that that is wise. So long as you leave your gold bar in the wrapper, it is not going to be challenged if you take delivery and then later on go to sell it. So I always encourage people that take delivery, leave it in the packaging. I know it's tempting to take it out and look at it, but and it is, gold and silver, they're beautiful metals. I have a bunch of silver coins on my desk that I just took delivery of yesterday, and they're spectacular looking. So it's hard not to do that, but leave it in the packaging. Bars, you're going to pay a lower premium because you're not going to pay someone as much to mint that bar as you do a coin. So you're paying closer to pure metal costs when you buy a bar as opposed to a coin.
Well, and of course, what you're referring to is avoiding any assay on sale. We personally have seen more of the 10-ounce bars start to get used, the people we work with, for that very reason. If you're going to deploy that kind of cash, and as gold came down, that was easier to do. As you say, you're getting more gold for your money.
That's absolutely right, and we've seen an uptick in kilogram bars as well. Now, that's just obviously a special class of individual from a net worth perspective that is going to invest in kg bars, and you're looking at $50,000-$55,000 per bar. So it's not everyone that can do that, but for those that can, I have seen a shift. The people that used to buy 10 1-ounce bars are now buying one 10-ounce bar. The people that used to accumulate 10-ounce bars are now buying kg bars. So everyone seems to be stepping up, which makes sense because you pay less per ounce by doing that.
And the only disadvantage would be is if you wanted to sell, say, half your holdings. But there again, as long as you can afford 2 bars, you can always do that anyway. So, but yeah, like you say, the larger the better.
That's right.
Now, I feel like I personally know the answer to this next question, but I think a lot of folks out there would like to hear it. And that is, are all the vaults that you offer equally safe and secure?
They are. And I'm glad you asked me that, because when we first launched, our vaulting partners asked us not to use their names. And that was really an obstacle for me, is how can I get people to trust our vaulting when we're just launching our company, when we can't use your names. But they were concerned about marketing and using their names for marketing purposes. So we've gone through long discussions, and many of them, to get them to understand that we're not trying to trade on their name, but at the same time, our customers deserve to know who's storing their metals. So I'm pleased to now be able to officially say that we use the 3 largest non-bank vaulters in the world, and that's Brinks, Malka Amit, and Viamat. So those are names that most of your listeners are going to be familiar with. Brinks runs the vaults in New York City, Salt Lake City, and Melbourne, Australia. And then Malka Amit is in Singapore, and Viamat is our other locations. So Zurich and London.
Yeah, and I think the Malka Amit would be the only one that probably almost everyone hasn't at least heard of. Certainly people in the industry have full confidence in them as well.
That's correct. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, what are you seeing as your customers' favorite vault location? And do you see any trends here? And obviously you've been adding some new vault options for a reason. So what can you tell us about that?
Very clear trends there. In the U.S., Salt Lake City is almost 2-to-1 the favored vault.
Really?
Which I found sort of surprising at first. I think it has to do with a few things. I mean, I've asked lots of our customers when I'm on the phone with them, why Salt Lake City as opposed to New York? Some, it's just sort of an ingrained bias against anything that even sounds like Wall Street, and I get that. So that's for that. But others want to be west of the Mississippi. Some of it is because they're west of the Mississippi. Utah is a very pro precious metal state. It's very friendly. In fact, Utah is one of the two states that has been trying to get precious metals accepted in the state as legal tender.
Yes.
And I think the Hurricane Sandy that came through last year really put a scare into people because I did see some holdings shift out of New York and over to Salt Lake. So that's the U.S. Overseas, we added Singapore about four or 5 months ago now. It is by far the number one overseas destination for new purchases. I would say 75% of metals purchased for overseas storage are going to Singapore at this point.
Wow.
Really remarkable. Before Singapore came online, it was Zurich. Since Singapore has come online, Zurich is still number two, but Singapore is just dominating.
Well, not that I think it necessarily matters, but there's been a lot of negative press about Switzerland with some of the things they've been doing as far as their private banking and or banking in general, and that may have some effect on it. But there's also been a lot of, if you read the right kind of press, a lot of emphasis on going over to the east and getting into Singapore and those type of areas because that's where the shift is going. So people are probably very glad to see when you open that up.
Absolutely. And you're right. The Singapore market is very, very strong, as is the entire Asian market. So it does make sense to have a chunk of your holdings in a market where there's high demand levels.
And where they understand the metal besides.
Exactly.
Now, a question we get all the time, and originally the answer was not yet. And that is, can I send you my Krugerrands or Eagles or bars that I already own to store for me? And maybe I'm getting nervous having this stuff in the bank or around the house or even buried in the backyard.
Sure. And for good reason. Metals, outside of the obvious theft, metals, they can melt. So, that's an issue. Storing them in a bank. What happens if the bank closes and you've got them in a safe deposit box? So there's lots of reasons why you should be concerned about storing them sort of in close proximity. I wish I had a better answer for you today. It's still we're working on it. We can do it we've done it for some people. Frankly, it's been fairly large holdings. The limitations are needs to be above a couple $100,000 in value, and it needs to be the metals need to be essentially in mint quality, and need to be metals that we sell. So essentially, bullion.
Sure. So if I've got a Mexican gold coin that you don't sell, not going to happen.
Right. I can't help you. I'd be glad on a one-off basis to steer you in a direction, but through Hard Assets Alliance, I can't help you. We are actively working on a service through Brinks where you would be able to ship smaller quantities in, and they would actually open the package under camera, inspect the package, assay if necessary, and then put the metals into storage. So we're 2 to 3 months away from that. What we're really trying to do is gauge interest and demand. So sure. If you receive any feedback on your end, I'd love to hear about that.
We sure will. Well, we did recently add the gold CombiBar from Valcambi, Suisse, and I'm seeing it's pretty popular already. Do you think it's a product with universal appeal, or is it just kind of a prepper product?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't think it's a prepper product. I really like the CombiBar. In addition to the way it looks, it's essentially, for those that don't know, CombiBar is a 50-gram bar, which equates to about 1.6 troy ounces. And this 50-gram bar is shaped essentially like a credit card. So it's very discreet. You can put it in your wallet. But the bar is scored into a 5x10 grid. So the holder can break off a strip of, say, 5 grams, and then can even break that 5-gram strip off into individual 1-gram pieces. And each piece is labeled 0.9999 pure gold, which is the same purity as your standard bullion coin or LBMA good delivery bar. And what you have is when you break off a 1 gram piece, you have a piece that's worth $45, $50, depending on where the market's at. It's a usable, tradable piece of gold in a size that is reasonable. I mean, if you walk into for whatever reason you want to barter a coin, say, well, you've got a coin that in your hand is worth 13, 14, $1,500. It's hard to go buy a tank of gas with a coin, right? So
Absolutely.
so,
And there
so
might be a
that's
little
kind
bit
of the
more of a
allure.
trust issue too. I mean, I'm more willing to trust that $50 piece of gold is fake than that $1,500 piece of gold is fake.
You'd certainly be looking at it more closely, I think.
What chance do you see for the kind of societal breakdown where a CombiBar would come in handy? And I'm sure that varies from country to country, but you guys have got a pretty good exposure to what's happening, and I guess we don't even have to mention Syria. Just in your own mind, personal opinion, what do you think might be the likelihood we'll be seeing that actually come to use the way they intended?
I think there's a couple of scenarios where it could come to play. One is for trade among like-minded people. I think it's perfect. So if you are in an area such as a Utah or in Arizona where precious metal is on the verge or in some of those areas already is acceptable legal tender, well, the CombiBar gives you a usable denomination to affect your trade in. So that could happen now, and I suspect it is happening now. The other scenario, and I was just interviewed by a large mainstream media outlet, and they asked me the same question. Discount total financial collapse. What scenario could you really see playing out over a year or so? And my answer was, I was stuck on the interstate in Connecticut when we had the blackout of 2003 and the power grid went down across the eastern seaboard into the Midwest.
Scary.
People were stuck, right? I mean, gas stations didn't work, ATMs didn't work. If you had $5 in your pocket, you had to make that $5 stretch, right? So that lasted, I think a little over a day. In the area that I was in, I know it was lasted longer in other places and less time in still others. But think about a situation like that where what if it lasted a week? Or what if a hurricane came through and knocked out power for a week or so? Gas pumps still aren't going to work.
No ATMs.
Right, ATMs aren't going to work. So whatever cash you have, that's going to go quickly. And then what do you fall back on? I would argue that silver coins or something like a CombiBar could be great to have on hand in an instance like that.
Well, I think so too. And of course, I fall victim to the very first comment you made about it, where it's just kind of cool,
Right.
But do you think you'll be offering the silver CombiBar or platinum or palladium soon?
I could see offering the platinum bar at some point. I'm not sure about the others. The reason I really liked the 50-gram gold CombiBar is it just felt like it was the right size and the right shape for the right metal. I mean, platinum is a little bit more esoteric on the, and certainly palladium on the investor scale. And we sell about 70% gold, 25% silver, and then the rest, the fractions, the remainders are platinum and palladium. So,
Sure.
A silver coin is still a reasonably usable size, somewhere around $25 right now. That feels like an okay size. So I don't know if the need is there for the silver CombiBar so much as the gold. I think the gold CombiBar really fits a niche, admittedly, but one that is underserved.
Oh, I think you're right. And it's if there actually was a lot of demand for it, I'm sure we'd have a supply problem.
I think you're right. Thankfully, Valcambi they've been great to work with. Valcambi Suisse is a well-known, well-recognized LBMA-listed refiner in Switzerland and really have their act together, and they've done a great job of supporting the product. So we haven't had any supply issues yet, and we've sold several hundred just in the week or so that we've made it available so far.
Doesn't surprise me.